Here is what you need to know before anything else. There is a gate in Lagos. Iron, painted black, slightly rusted at the bottom hinge where the rains come and the repairs do not. There is a flame tree at the corner of the compound wall that has been there since Adiz Okonkwo was 7 years old and used to climb it until her mother threatened consequences she never quite specified but always believed. On a Tuesday afternoon in early spring, a car stopped at that gate. A man got out. Tall. Dark suit. The kind of stillness that makes a street rearrange itself without being asked. Beside him, holding his hand and wearing dinosaur socks visible below the hem of his trousers because no one had caught him in time, was a 4-year-old boy who looked up at the gate with enormous dark eyes and said, in very serious Korean, that he thought this was a good house. Kang Siwan looked down at his son. Then he looked at the gate. Then he knocked. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. The house changed in 3 minutes. Ada had watched it happen from the kitchen doorway, the way a place transforms when the person who runs it stops managing the surface of things and allows what lives underneath to come up. Men she had seen in the periphery of weeks suddenly had names and specific functions. Phones rang and were answered in clipped syllables. The front gate sealed. The back gate sealed. Mrs. Huang appeared at the top of the stairs and took Junie by the hand with the particular calm of a woman who has seen this before and knows precisely what her role is in it. Ada stood in the kitchen with Siwan's phone in her hand and the image of her mother's compound wall on the screen and Chisholm's green school bag on her back. She had been standing there for 4 minutes. She knew because she had been counting. Counting was something to do with her hands that was not shaking. Siwan came back through the kitchen at a pace that was not quite running and was more alarming for it. Controlled speed, the kind that meant the situation was serious enough to require efficiency rather than urgency. He looked at her once. A full look, the kind he had been giving her increasingly over the weeks that meant he was registering something beyond the immediate. Your family, he said. I need their exact address. I'll give it to you. She heard her own voice from somewhere steady she did not know she had access to. But Siwan. Saurin first. Something moved across his face. Yes, he said. She gave him the address. The full one. The gate number and the flame tree and the landlord's name who shared the compound wall and whose dog barked at strangers. He repeated it back to her perfectly and left the room. Ada set the phone face down on the counter. She turned to the stove. She made tea because her hands needed something to do and because the alternative was sitting in the silence of a kitchen that had stopped being safe 3 minutes ago, and that was not something she was prepared to do. From the hallway she could hear Siwan's voice, low, precise, unbroken, and the particular quality of it that she had heard once before, on a night when Sarah's heels had clicked out of a study and she had understood for the first time what kind of man she had moved into the orbit of. That quality had no warmth in it. It had something more useful. The first 24 hours had the texture of waiting made solid. Ada moved through them the way she moved through everything difficult, with her hands occupied and her face arranged and the interior of herself locked behind something that would hold until she had privacy to let it not hold. She cooked. She kept Junie's routine intact as much as possible, breakfast at the right time, the counting game at the kitchen island, the afternoon picture books that he insisted on having read with specific character voices that she had developed over weeks and could not now abandon without explanation. Junie knew something was different. Children always know. They read it in the air before they can name it, in the way adults move, in the specific quality of quiet that descends on a house that is usually noisier. He sat at the kitchen island on the second morning and lined up dried beans in a row without being asked and counted them very carefully and then looked up at Ada. Is Appa coming back? He asked. Ada looked at him. Your Appa is working, she said. He'll be back tonight. Junie considered this with the gravity of a person who has learned that adults tell you the true thing and the safe thing and you have to decide which one you're getting. Then he placed one more bean in the row. Okay, he said. Ada kept her face exactly where it was. She had called Saurin's phone 14 times in the first 12 hours. Each time the same thing, one ring, then the particular dead silence of a line that was not merely unanswered but unreachable. She had called Saurin's mother on the third attempt and spent 6 minutes in a conversation that required her to be calm in a way she did not feel while explaining, in the carefully selected language of someone managing another person's fear as well as her own, that Saurin had been unavailable and she was working to locate her. She had not told her the rest. She would not tell her the rest unless she had to. She hoped she would not have to. The tip came through on the second night. Ada did not know this at the time. She was in her room, finally horizontal after 36 hours of not being horizontal, staring at the ceiling with the particular wakefulness of a body that is too exhausted to sleep. She heard Siwan's phone in the corridor, one alert, the kind that made him move, and then his footsteps, rapid and deliberate, toward the stairs. She was dressed in 60 seconds. By the time she reached the corridor he was already at the bottom of the stairs, coat on, Two men she had learned were called Jay and Director Park assembled behind him with the synchronized readiness of people who had been waiting for exactly this. Siwan looked up at her from the foot of the stairs. "Stay in the house," he said. "Where is she?" A pause. Something moved behind his eyes, the thing that always moved there when he was deciding how much to give her. He had been giving her more of it lately. Enough that she had started to understand the shape of it. "Yongsanjiu," he said. "Warehouse district. We have the building." "How?" He held her gaze for one long second. "It doesn't matter how," he said. "She's alive. I will bring her back." He was gone before Ada could ask the question that was already forming, the one about the specific quality of that pause, the way he had looked at his phone before looking at her, the fact that he had not answered her when she asked how. She found out 3 days later, from a sentence Mrs. Huang did not mean to complete, that the location had been sent anonymously. A blocked number. A single set of coordinates. Nothing else. Ada stood in the kitchen and absorbed this information and thought about Park Sarah in her silk robe displacing a container of crayfish on a counter, and about Junie at the top of the stairs watching a door close, and about all the ways a person could make a choice for the wrong reasons that still landed in the right place. Siwan never mentioned it. Ada never asked. Some things are understood without requiring language. Besties. Drop your location in the comments right now. We have readers on every continent and we need to see you tonight. Like this video and subscribe. Saurin is about to come home. Oh, Saurin came home at 2 in the morning. Ada was in the kitchen. She had stopped pretending she could sleep when she heard the front door. She was in the entrance hall before she had decided to move. Saurin was standing in the doorway. She was upright. Physically intact. No visible injury, no broken thing that Ada could see. She was wearing a jacket Ada didn't recognize, probably someone's from the car, and her hair had lost whatever it had been doing when she left her apartment 36 hours ago. She looked at Ada from the doorway with an expression Ada had never seen on her face in the 4 years they had known each other. Not afraid. Not relieved. Quiet in a way that was new. Ada crossed the hall and held her. Saurin stood in it for a long moment, the particular stillness of someone who has been somewhere they cannot yet fully describe and is grateful for the warmth of another body without yet being ready to explain what they need the warmth for. Then she pulled back and looked at Ada with that new quiet. "I'm okay," she said. "I know," Ada said. "You don't have to tell me anything tonight." Saurin looked at her. "I will, though," she said. "Eventually. I'll tell you." "I know that too." Ada brought her inside and made her eat something and sat across from her at the kitchen island while Siwan's men confirmed the building was clear and Jay gave a brief report to Siwan at the front of the house that Ada could hear but could not follow. She did not try to follow it. She watched Saurin eat half a bowl of rice with the methodical focus of someone replenishing something that has been depleted, and she thought about how there are people in your life who exist so consistently in the category of present and safe that you forget they are also just human beings with bodies that can be put in chairs in rooms and warehouses in Yongsanjiu. She would not forget that again. 4 nights later, Ada was at her desk. Her laptop was open to a document she had not added anything meaningful to in 3 weeks, a literature review for her postgraduate thesis that her supervisor had emailed about twice with the particular diplomatic patience of an academic who is beginning to lose their patience diplomatically. She had read the email 4 times and each time gotten as far as formulating a response before something in the house required her attention or something in her chest required management. Tonight the house was quiet. Saurin was asleep in the guest room. Junie was asleep. Mrs. Huang had gone to bed. The men who had been stationed at the perimeter had reduced to 2 since the previous evening. Ada sat at her desk and looked at her document and wrote 2 sentences that she immediately deleted. Then she wrote them again. Then she deleted them again. She did not hear Siwan in the corridor. She heard the door instead, a soft sound, the particular sound of someone who has stopped outside a room and is deciding whether to knock or leave. A long pause. Then the knock. "Come in," she said. He opened the door and looked at the desk and her laptop and the expression on her face that she had not yet arranged into something presentable. "You should be sleeping," he said. "Probably," she agreed. He looked at the laptop screen. "Your thesis." "A section of it. I'm very behind. My supervisor is," she stopped. "It doesn't matter." "It matters," he said. Quiet and certain, the way he said things that were not negotiable. "It's what you came to Seoul for." Ada looked at him in the doorway, this man who had paid off her family's debt at midnight and was now standing in her bedroom doorway at 11 p.m. reminding her of her academic obligations, and felt something she was becoming less able to contain move through her chest. "You can come in," she said. "If you're going to stand there." He came in. He sat in the chair in the corner that held things she had draped over it because she never sat there herself. He moved the things carefully and set them on the dresser and sat down. He did not speak. Ada turned back to her laptop. She wrote a sentence. Then another. Then a paragraph that did not need deleting. The particular strange alchemy of another person's silent presence, the right presence, the specific presence, doing something to her concentration that being alone had not been able to do. She worked for an hour. When she turned around, he was asleep in the chair. Upright, jacket still on, head dropped slightly forward, the controlled architecture of him finally, completely at rest. Ada looked at him for a long time. Then she got a blanket from the bed and put it over his shoulders and went back to her thesis. Lee Do-yoon's operation ended on a Friday. Ada did not witness all of it. She was not supposed to witness any of it. But the house was not large enough to contain what happened within it on Friday afternoon, and she was not the kind of woman who stayed in a kitchen when the world was being reorganized in the next room. She stayed in the kitchen. She stayed in it and heard everything. The voices, Siwan's and two others she recognized and one she did not. The particular language of men dismantling another man's life with the same methodical calm they might use to review a balance sheet. Account numbers. Asset seizures. A contact in the prosecutor's office whose name was mentioned once and not repeated. The Busan Holdings, the Incheon properties, the shell companies that Do-yoon had constructed across 3 jurisdictions and that Siwan had apparently mapped in their entirety while sitting in board meetings and at dinner tables and at bedsides and in plastic hospital chairs. He had been building this dismantling for months. Quietly. Completely. Waiting for the arrangement to be made before anyone else understood the arrangement had already happened. Ada stood at the kitchen counter and listened and understood something that landed in her chest and settled there with a weight that was neither bad nor good but simply true. This was who he was. Not the part of him that slept in a chair in her room or straightened her market list or stood at the foot of the stairs and told her Saurin was alive. Not only that. This too, this cold precise machinery, this ability to be 7 moves ahead while appearing to be present in only one, this version of a man who could reduce another human being to a forensic accounting exercise and feel nothing externally while doing it. Both things were true simultaneously. She had known this. She had known it since the first night in the kitchen, since the back door clicked and she had grabbed the arm of a building and felt what she was grabbing. She had known it and let him past her walls anyway, and now she was standing in his kitchen having let him past all of them, and the knowing sat differently than it had before. At 3:17 p.m., the study door opened. Jay and Director Park left through the front. The third voice followed. Silence. Then Siwan appeared in the kitchen doorway. He looked at her. She looked at him. The afternoon light came through the windows the way afternoon light does, indifferent to what it falls across, illuminating everything equally. Ada looked at his face and saw both things at once. The man who had spent today dismantling a person. The man who would come upstairs tonight and sit in a corner chair and be present in the particular quiet way that had become necessary to her in a way she had not given herself permission to fully examine. It's done, he said. I know, she said. He crossed the kitchen and stood beside her at the counter and looked out of the window at the city below them, sole, indifferent and luminous, entirely unaware. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Ada, he said finally. Don't, she said. Quietly. Not right now. Let me just, she stopped. She pressed her palms flat on the counter. Let me just stand here for a minute. He said nothing. He stayed. Besties. If you feel everything she's feeling right now, drop I feel it in the comments. This is the story of a woman who sees a man completely. What she does with that is everything. Saurin had been staying in the guest room for a week when she said the thing. They were in the kitchen. Late afternoon. Junie was with his tutor. The house had its weekday quiet. Ada was cooking, not for the household, just for them, the specific kind of cooking that is really an act of care dressed as something practical. And Saurin was sitting at the island watching her with the new quality of quiet she had brought back from Yongsan-jiu. She had been talking, slowly, over the course of the week. Fragments. The room. The chair. The way time had moved differently in the 36 hours between being taken and being found. She had not cried. Saurin was not, as Ada well knew, a crier. She processed things with a quiet thoroughness that looked like calm from the outside and was something much more complicated underneath. Can I tell you something? Saurin said. Always, Ada said. A pause. Then, I almost died for a story I wasn't even in. Ada's hand stilled on the cutting board. Saurin said it without blame. Without the weight of accusation. She said it the way she said most true things, directly, clearly, with the full warmth of a person who loves you and is telling you the truth precisely because of that love and not despite it. I know, Ada said. I'm not telling you that so you feel guilty, Saurin said. I'm telling you because I sat in that room for 36 hours and the only thing I could think about, the whole time, Ada, the whole time, was that I needed you to know. Whatever this is. Whatever you're doing here in this house with this man. I needed you to know what it costs. Ada set down the knife. She turned around. Saurin was looking at her with those eyes, the ones that had held the wrong language on an arrival sign 4 years ago and had never stopped being the warmest thing Ada had found in this city. I love you, Saurin said. That's the whole point. I love you and I'm fine and I need you to know what it costs. Ada's throat did the inconvenient thing it had been doing with increasing frequency lately. Saurin. Go home, Saurin said. Gentle. Absolute. Not forever. Just. Go home first. Know what you're choosing before you choose it. The kitchen held the words. Outside, Seoul continued its afternoon. Ada turned back to the cutting board and stood there for a long time with her hands flat on the counter and her face doing things she was not going to look at directly. She knew Saurin was right. She had known it since the kitchen on Friday afternoon. Since the afternoon light and both versions of him and the weight in her chest that was neither bad nor good but simply true. She needed to go somewhere that was fully hers before she could understand what she was willing to offer someone else. She needed Lagos. She packed the way she did everything, efficiently, without drama, with the particular economy of a woman who has moved enough times to know exactly what she needs and what is ballast. It was early morning. The house was not yet awake. She had written the note at the kitchen table on actual paper this time. She had learned, in the months she had been in this house, where the paper was, and left it folded on the counter under the salt shaker. She had written, I am going home. Not forever. I need to understand what I'm choosing. She stood at the kitchen door with her bag on her shoulder and looked at the room. The counter where she had made his breakfast 700 times. The island where Junie had counted beans. The window where Seoul came in every morning indifferent and luminous and entirely present. She turned and walked toward the front door. He was sitting at the top of the stairs. Kang Junie. 4 years old. Dinosaur socks, the original pair, slightly gray from washing. Sitting at the top of the stairs with his hair pressed flat from sleep and his dark eyes enormous and entirely awake, watching her come through the hallway with her bag. Ada stopped. She looked up at him. He looked down at her. He did not cry. He did not ask where she was going. He did not say anything at all for a long moment, just sat at the top of the stairs and looked at her with the enormous serious eyes of a child who has already, once before, watched someone he loved walk toward a door. Then he put his hand in the pocket of his pajamas. He took out a single dried bean. He held it out over the banister. Ada's hand came up before she thought about it. The bean fell the distance between them and landed in her palm, small and dry and warm from where he had been holding it. Junie looked at her. One, he said, in English. Very carefully. The way he always said it, like he was holding something fragile in his voice and was determined not to drop it. Ada stood in the hallway with a bean in her palm and felt the last of her composure make a quiet, dignified exit. That's right, baby, she managed. 1. She closed her hand around it. She walked out the front door. She carried it all the way to Lagos. Besties. Take a moment. The bean. We cannot. Drop ONE in the comments right now if Junie just broke your whole heart. Share this with someone who deserves a story this powerful tonight. Lagos received her the way it always had. With noise and heat and the particular smell of a city that has never once pretended to be anything other than completely itself. The traffic from the airport was exactly as catastrophic as she remembered and the driver was exactly as philosophical about it as Lagos drivers always were and she sat in the back seat with her head against the window and watched the city slide past and felt something in her chest a knot that she had not known was knotted. Her mother was at the gate. She had not told her exactly when the flight landed. She had learned, 27 years into being this woman's daughter, that this made no difference. Her mother was at the gate with the particular expression of a woman who has been carrying the weight of a child who is very far away for a very long time and has just been given permission to set it down. Ada dropped her bag at the gate. Her mother held her face in both palms, the same gesture, the specific geography of it, unchanged since the airport 3 years ago, and looked at her. You're thin, her mother said. I'm a chef, Mama. That is not what I said. Ada laughed. For the first time in 2 weeks, something real and uncalculated. The compound smelled like the specific mixture of palm oil and garden and evening air and the landlord's dog 2 walls over that had been the smell of home since Ada was 11 years old. Chisholm came out of the house at a velocity that suggested she had been waiting inside the door for the past hour and threw herself at Ada without ceremony. Ngozi followed with more dignity and less patience and took Ada's bag from the ground without being asked. Her father came last, slower now, more deliberate, with the specific quality of stillness that Ada had watched gather in him over the years and which looked, she understood suddenly and completely, like something she had seen in a different man in a kitchen in Seoul. He held her for a long time without saying anything. Just held her. "You're home," he said finally. "I'm home," she said. She stayed for 9 days. She deferred her semester, a conversation with her supervisor that went better than she deserved, partly because the woman was perceptive and partly because Ada had prepared a clear academic plan that demonstrated she had not stopped thinking about her thesis even in the middle of everything, which was true. She helped her mother cook. She sat with Chisholm and listened to an extremely detailed account of a school drama involving 3 people and a misattributed text message that had apparently divided the entire form. She went with Ngozi to a fabric market and let Ngozi choose everything because Ngozi had the better eye and they both knew it. She sat with her father in the evenings and watched the compound in the particular golden light that Lagos evenings produce, that specific quality of light that is different from every other light in the world, that she had thought about on a hospital night from 4 to 7 floors up. She did not talk about Siwan. She did not need to. Her mother looked at her face on the 3rd day and said, with the unhurried certainty of a woman who has been reading her daughter since before her daughter had words, "There is someone." Not a question. "Mama." "There is someone," her mother said again. "And you are here instead of there. Which means you are thinking." She picked up her pepper and continued sorting it. "Good. Think properly. Then decide." Ada looked at her mother. "How did you know?" she asked. "About Daddy. How did you know it was the right decision?" Her mother sorted pepper for a moment. "Then, I didn't know. I decided. There is a difference." Ada sat with that for 3 days. On the 9th day, Chisholm came into the kitchen at 2 in the afternoon and said that there was a man at the gate. Ada looked up from the pot she was stirring. "What kind of man?" she asked. Chisholm's face was doing something complicated. "A very serious kind. With a very small child who is wearing the most interesting socks I have ever seen." Ada put down the spoon. She wiped her hands on the cloth hanging from the counter. She walked through the compound and through the door and to the iron gate that was slightly rusted at the bottom hinge and had a flame tree at the corner that she had climbed at 7. Kang Siwan was standing on the other side of it. He was in a dark suit that was somewhat creased, 12-hour flight creased, the specific damage of a man who had come a long distance without stopping to consider whether to come. His hands were in his pockets. His face had the particular stillness that she had learned, over months of kitchens and late nights in hospital corridors, was not blankness but its opposite, a face that was feeling something too large to allow to the surface. Junie was beside him, holding his hand. Dinosaur socks visible below his trousers. Looking up at the gate and the flame tree with enormous interested eyes. He had, Ada noticed, a small backpack shaped like a dinosaur on his back, which meant someone had packed a bag for him, which meant this trip had been prepared, which meant Siwan had stood in an apartment in Seoul and made a decision and then packed a 4-year-old's bag and gotten on a plane. Ada looked at them through the gate. Siwan looked at her. Junie tugged Siwan's hand and said something in Korean that Ada caught. He said he thought this was a good house. Because of the tree. Ada unlatched the gate. Her mother served them food. This was not a decision so much as a fact of nature. A person arrived in her mother's compound and food was produced, and the quality of the food communicated everything about how the arrival was being received. She produced jollof rice and fried plantain and pepper soup and chin-chin that she had made the previous day and placed it in front of Siwan with the particular composed assessment of a woman who has been evaluating the people her daughter brings within her orbit since Ada was 16 and does not require much time to form a conclusion. Junie ate with the committed focus of a child who has discovered jollof rice and cannot believe it has been withheld from him for 4 years. Siwan ate carefully and said, to Ada's mother, that it was the best food he had eaten in a long time. Her mother looked at him. "My daughter is a better cook than I am," she said. "Yes," he said. "I know." Her mother looked at him for 3 more seconds. Then she looked at Junie. Then she looked at Ada. She said nothing. She picked up the chin-chin bowl and offered it to Junie, who took 4 pieces and said Kamsahamnida with such seriousness that her mother's expression did something Ada had seen it do only a handful of times in her life. It softened completely. Later, when Chisholm had taken Junie to see the flame tree and Ada's father had pulled Siwan into a conversation about things Ada could not hear from the kitchen doorway but which appeared, from her father's expression, to be going in a direction she had not expected, Ada's mother came and stood beside her. "He came a long way," her mother said. "Yes." "With the child." "Yes." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "A man who brings his child is not performing," she said. "He is showing you what is real." Ada watched her father talking to Siwan on the compound chairs. Siwan was listening with the full quality of his attention, the kind that made a person feel like the only object in a very large room. Her father was talking with his hands, which he did when he was comfortable, which he almost never was with strangers. "Mama," Ada said. "Go and talk to him," her mother said. I will watch the children. They sat on the low wall at the far end of the compound, near the flame tree, while Chisholm and Junie conducted what appeared to be a bilateral negotiation about the correct way to climb it, Chisholm demonstrating the technique with great authority, Junie watching with the grave attention of a student who is taking the instruction seriously. The evening light was doing the thing it did in Lagos, that gold, that specific angle, that quality that was different from every other light in the world. Ada sat beside him and looked at the tree. You came, she said. Yes. With Junie. He wanted to come. A pause. I wanted him to come. Ada looked at the tree for a moment. Then, why? He was quiet long enough that she thought he might not answer. Then. Because I didn't want to come here and make a case for myself, he said. I've spent my entire life making cases. Building arguments. Being 7 moves ahead. He looked at her. I didn't want to do that here. With you. I wanted to come and be exactly what I am and let you decide what to do with it. Ada turned to look at him. And what are you? She asked. Genuinely. Not challenging. The same honest question she had asked in the kitchen on a night that felt like a long time ago. He held her gaze. Someone who has made a great many choices I cannot undo, he said. Who runs an organization that operates in places that polite conversation does not acknowledge. Who is capable of things that I would not describe to you at dinner. A pause. Who also paid off your family's debt at midnight because the thought of you carrying it while I had the ability to remove it was something I could not make peace with. Ada said nothing. Who has a son who gave you a bean at 6 in the morning, Siwan continued, and who has not stopped asking me where Ada went since the morning you left? Who sat in a chair in your room for an hour without being asked because the sound of you working made the whole house feel like a different place? The flame tree moved in the evening air. Junie had successfully climbed 2 feet up the trunk with Chisholm's guidance and was announcing this achievement to the compound in general. I know what I am, Siwan said. All of it. I'm not asking you to choose the parts you can manage. I'm asking you to choose the whole thing, with your eyes open. And if the whole thing is too much, he stopped. Something moved briefly and completely through his expression. Then I needed you to know I understood that. And that I came to tell you in person rather than wait for you to come back to me on my terms. Ada looked at him. She thought about a padded chair. A ceramic cup. A market list smoothed flat under a salt shaker. A man who had driven himself across Seoul and run every red light and sat in a plastic chair for 72 hours. A bean falling from the top of a staircase into an open palm. She thought about her mother. I didn't know. I decided. There is a difference. She thought about what Saurin had said, not as an argument against this, but as part of the full weight of it. The cost of it. A person who loved her had almost paid that cost. I know what you are, she said finally. I've known since the first night. I'm not going to tell you it's simple or that none of it matters. I know. And I'm not going to perform being okay with things I'm not okay with just to make this easier. I wouldn't want you to. He said it immediately. With the full weight of a man who meant it. Ada looked at the flame tree. Saurin needs to be safe, she said. Actually safe. Not managed. Not protected at a distance. Safe. Done. My thesis. I'm finishing it. The semester I deferred, the one after, all of it. Obviously. And my family. Ada. Quiet. Your family is not a negotiating point. They were never a negotiating point. She turned to look at him. He was looking back at her with an expression she had seen only once before, in a hospital room at 1 in the morning, the open unguarded version, the one stripped of all the careful distance. I am exceptionally difficult, he said. I know this about myself. Yes, she agreed. You are. And you are the most direct person I have ever encountered in 38 years of being surrounded by people who are paid to tell me what I want to hear. Is that a complaint? It's the primary reason I'm sitting on a wall in Lagos, he said. Ada looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached out and put her hand over his where it rested on the wall between them. He turned his palm up and held it. From across the compound, Junie's voice, Ada. I climbed the tree. Ada looked up. He was 2.5 feet off the ground, gripping the first branch with both hands, his face blazing with the specific triumph of a small person who has done the thing. Chisholm was below him with her arms ready, beaming. Ada's mouth curved. I see you, baby, she called. I see you. Beside her, Siwan's hand tightened around hers. She looked at him. He was watching his son with an expression she had never seen from him in the direction of another person. Open, warm, entirely without management. The full version of him. Both versions, simultaneously, sitting in the evening light of a Lagos compound without hiding either one. Ada looked at that expression. Then she looked at the flame tree. Then she made a decision. Besties. She decided. Drop she decided in the comments right now if you felt that. We are watching from everywhere tonight. Share this story, someone in your life needs it. 3 months later. Ada's thesis was submitted on a Thursday. Not the deferred semester, the one after. She had come back to Seoul in February, back to the university, back to the supervisor who had received her with the diplomatic patience of someone who had heard a great deal more of her actual situation through the grapevine of postgraduate cohorts than Ada had disclosed, and had simply said, let's build a new timeline. They had built it. Ada had met every point on it. She came home on the Thursday she submitted it, home, which was now a specific geography she had stopped pretending was complicated, and found the kitchen empty, which meant Junie was still with his tutor and Siwan was still in the study. She made coffee. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling window and looked at Seoul in its late afternoon light, and the city spread itself 4 to 7 floors below her in every direction, indifferent and luminous, incapable of caring what was happening in the woman looking down at it. She heard him before she saw him. The specific sound of him, unhurried, deliberate, entirely itself. He came to stand beside her at the window. Done? He said. Submitted, she said. Done is when they tell me what they think of it. They will think well of it, he said. With the complete certainty of a man who has read every chapter 3 times and made comments in the margins in a handwriting she has come to recognize as precisely as his voice. You can't know that. I know you, he said. The outcome follows. Ada looked at the city. She thought about a 14-hour flight and a scholarship letter and a loan in someone else's handwriting and a handwritten sign in the wrong language held by the warmest person she had found in a city of 10 million. She thought about a kitchen at 11:47 p.m. and a cold knife and a door that clicked open and the arm of a building that she had grabbed without thinking. She thought about a bean in her palm, warm from a 4-year-old's pocket. She thought about a wall in Lagos in the evening light and a decision made with her eyes all the way open. Saurin is coming for dinner on Sunday, she said. I know. She called me to confirm the time. Ada turned to look at him. She called you directly. She also told me that if I ever put her in another situation involving a warehouse, she will write a very detailed account of everything and send it to every person she knows. A pause. I told her that was reasonable. Ada stared at him. You told her that was reasonable. She is reasonable, he said. The threat is proportionate. I respect it. Ada looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned back to the window and the city below it and the evening light doing what evening light does when you are inside a moment that will matter. His hand found hers the way it always did now, not ceremoniously, not with announcement, but the way things find each other when they have stopped pretending they belong anywhere else. From upstairs, the sound of Junie's door and his voice down the corridor and then his footsteps, fast, dinosaur sock accelerated, coming toward the stairs. Ada. Did you finish? Appa said you were finishing today. He appeared at the top of the stairs, backpack still on, tutor day energy radiating from every part of him. I finished, Ada called up. Junie processed this. Then, so now can we make the dinosaur pancakes? Ada looked at Siwan. Siwan looked at her. Dinosaur pancakes, he said. Apparently, she said. She went to the kitchen. He followed. Junie came thundering down the stairs in his socks and climbed onto his stool and placed a single dried bean on the counter. One, he said. Seriously. The way he always began. Ada looked at the bean. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan. She placed another bean beside his, the one she had carried from Seoul to Lagos and back again, small and dry and warm from every pocket it had lived in. 2, she said. Junie looked at the 2 beans. He looked up at Ada. He looked at his father standing at the counter with his coffee cup. Then he placed a 3rd bean from his own pocket beside the others. He had been carrying them for weeks. They would discover, in every item of clothing he owned, the way small children carry the things that feel important. 3, he said. The kitchen held the 3 of them. Seoul moved through its evening below, indifferent and relentless. Above it, in a kitchen that smelled like both of them and a 4-year-old's particular brand of dinosaur sock chaos, Ada Okonkwo measured flour into a bowl and thought that some things do not announce themselves. They accumulate. In kitchens and late nights and borrowed chairs. In market lists smoothed flat. In beans counted one at a time. In gates unlatched in the Lagos evening. In decisions made with open eyes and the full cost accepted and the full warmth chosen anyway. The best love stories always cost something first. This one had asked for everything. She had paid it. She was glad. Besties. That is the story. Complete. Whole. Every price paid and every choice made with eyes wide open. Drop worth every price in the comments if Ada and Siwan gave you everything. Share this right now, someone needs this story tonight. Subscribe to Stories Behind the Billions because we are just getting started and the next story will find you. We love you, besties. We will see you in the next one. Stories Behind the Billions. Because the best love stories always cost something first.